my point being, and this is the number one thing that I want to share with you, and then I have a few other points, is please do not toxify your relationship with your kids over homework output, okay? It is not a future predictor of their success. What matters more and what are predictors of future success are, number one, your ability to form social relationships, all right? Number two, your ability to manage your emotions, and number three, your ability to manage your life independently and engage in independent problem solving. Those are the three best predictors of future success, with number one, forming social relationships, as the top one, okay? The things we know are the best predictors of success after high school are, number one, being able to manage your sleep hygiene, so waking up on your own, going to bed at a reasonable time, and also having a job during high school is a predictor for whatever reason. So, when parents say to me things like, well, we're up till 10 o'clock doing homework, I say to them, stop. That's ridiculous. He's in 6th grade, 7th grade, that's you're bringing this, this stress to your relationship over homework completion. And let's be honest here, and no offense to teachers, a lot of homework is busy work, okay? So here's what I'm going to suggest to you. If homework is an issue, what we want to focus on is, are you putting in effort and are you doing quality work, okay? So we're talking about quality over quantity, and if you're putting in effort and pushing yourself out of your comfort zone a little bit, okay? Those to me are more important than homework output. So I want to make some suggestions to you as well, and then I'll answer whatever questions are there, okay? So number one, you can, now let me preface this by saying, okay, that I am not an expert in IEP accommodations or 504 plans. That is not my area. I really don't get into this, all right? But what I will tell you is you can ask for accommodations in an IEP that focus on showing understanding of the material and work being graded on what is produced, rather than grades being dictated by percentage of work done or how many assignments were completed. So what I'm saying is you can ask for work to be graded from a different perspective, for showing understanding of materials and putting in effort. And so that's number one, okay? You can ask for that. Excuse me. A lot of times people say to me, what are the best accommodations for, kids with ADHD? That's kind of like saying, what is the best kind of ice cream? Okay. This is so individualized, but here's what I will tell you about this. With any accommodation, here's the question to ask yourself. Is this helping him or her move towards being an independent learner, or is it further enabling prompt dependence on adults? Okay, so let me give you an example. Something like a resource room teacher hands all the homework to your son or daughter so they know what they have for homework, okay? That's further enabling prompt dependence on adults. Whereas something like, he will have the, homework, he has to copy the homework down from the smartboard, okay? Or it's, he has to copy the homework down into his planner from, the Google Docs or whatever, Google Classroom, okay? That is something that is helping to cultivate independence. So really, there is no such thing as the best or right accommodations, because every kid is unique, but that is the number one question you want to ask yourself. Is this further enabling prompt dependence on adults, or is this helping to develop independence and helping my son or daughter become an independent learner? Okay? The next really important thing I want to mention is to let your kids advocate for themselves with teachers. So if your son or daughter is in 5th grade, so like age, 10 going on to 11 or up, do not email teachers for them. Let them speak to teachers themselves, because that's how you develop self-advocacy skills. When you speak to teachers for them, you're denying them the opportunity to develop self-advocacy skills. Now, for instance, when I find, when I'm working with a kid and they get stuck on some kind of assignment, what I say is to the parents, I say, okay, well, let him email the teacher. You can type it for him, of course. He doesn't have to type it himself, but let him come up with the words, and you can help him say, hi, Mrs. Smith, I was doing, the math homework and I got a little stuck tonight, so I only got to problem 3. Because not only is that using self-advocacy skills, but it's teaching kids to be proactive. It's teaching them that if you have trouble with something, you have to be proactive rather than just being passive, and letting the teacher bring it up to you. And I think teachers appreciate that as well, and they should appreciate it, because again, the more that we teach kids to take ownership over their own education, the better off they're going to be in life. And that is something that is really missing from, I find, most IEPs and 504 plans, is this whole concept of ownership. Michelle Garcia Winner, who created Social Thinking, the work that I've done most of my training in around social skills, she has a saying that and I can't quote her directly, but, basically in IEPs, we put all the responsibility on adults and there is no responsibility on kids. Now, I have had some parents say to me, well, there was something in my son's IEP or my daughter's IEP, and I say, great, that's fantastic to hear that. That's not most of them, though, all right? The very last piece of advice I want to give you is, regarding school for this year, okay, is don't become combative at all with your son or daughter's teachers, okay? That's one of the worst things you can do. And I will tell you, somebody is going to watch this at some point, and they are going to be one of the parents who are spoken about in the meetings that are happening around this time of year, okay? When like the 7th grade teachers talk to the 8th grade teachers, and they give them, they tell them about the high maintenance parents, all right? And I'm using nice language here, okay? They really don't typically use that term. But you don't want to be one of those parents who is talked about, because here's the thing. If you get combative with, your son or daughter's teachers or whomever, they're going to be professional, but they might keep your kids at a little bit of a distance because they don't want to have to deal with you. All right. And trust me, from somebody who's been in the education field, who's worked in schools, this is not something I'm making up. This is something I know from firsthand experience. Okay. The other thing with that as well is, and let me just tell you this story real quick. I was working with a parent, a few months ago, and she said to me, well, I send her all your stuff, and I send her, the declarative language book and all this. And I said, you're focusing on the wrong person. You want your son's teacher to learn all about executive functioning. I said, that's not her responsibility. I said, if you have a problem with her lack of knowledge about this, okay, then what you have to do is you have to go to the director of special ed in your school district and talk to them, or even go to the superintendent and say, look, we really need some training. We need the teachers to have some training about executive functioning or ADHD, whatever it is. So I don't like to see teachers being singled out for, what they don't know, or because parents get frustrated with them, because at the end of the day, this is not their fault. Remember, most teachers get absolutely no education or training in executive functioning. They get no training or education in ADHD, and schools are really not providing it either, okay? And why? Because that's not who is kind of making the most waves in school districts, and that's why there's not attention to it. So if you want teachers to have more information, don't go to the teachers, okay? Go to the director of special ed about this, or the curriculum director. All right. So I hope this is helpful. I will answer a few questions. Renee asks, any advice for those of us continuing with virtual school? So Renee, this is, really my answer is as soon as you can stop with virtual school, stop, because I've pretty much seen nothing but disastrous results with it. Okay. And we have data now that showed it really affected kids' mental health negatively. So the one, thing I can offer is in my executive function crash course series, number 6 is about applying the executive function crash course strategies to virtual learning. I did that about this time last year. And really what it's focused on is how to make virtual learning more tolerable, not how to make a virtual learning student. Okay. I don't think this is an optimal way for most kids with ADHD to learn. So I would tell anybody, as soon as you can stop virtual learning, please stop it. Okay. So Mike asks, what types of supports are typical for an 8-year-old going into 3rd grade? So Mike, this isn't really, my area, and we have to, specify if we're talking about a 504 plan or an IEP, but some of the things that I typically see for that age are, sitting towards the front, closer to the teacher's desks. I see, breaks to get up and move around, to, go get a drink, so they have that, sensory break. We can also use some sensory input things like TheraBands around chairs, or one of the, I wish there was an OT here to tell me what they're called. It's kind of like the yoga ball seat, those kind of things. So really for that age, for 3rd grade, what I like to see is the sensory input piece. I like to see breaks. Sitting, closer to the front, because it's a little easier to pay attention then. One of the things I do want to mention to everybody that is a myth that is in IEPs, and every single one I see, is where it says, Ryan will sit next to positive peer role models, okay? kids do not improve their social skills. Kids do not improve situational awareness by osmosis. So sitting next to a kid who is more focused, or is more, socially ahead, that's not going to help them. Okay, that's a myth that's perpetuated in IEPs. That somehow if you just put kids around better peer role models, they're going to improve their social skills or situational awareness, and that's just not accurate. Okay. So let's see. What about rising ninth grader placed in 3 honors classes that doesn't believe in homework? So what I would say is, then maybe I guess I would ask the teachers what or the counselor what their thoughts are about that, because again ninth grade, so 14 turning 15, you can't be acting as his or her executive functioning at that point anymore. Okay, you can't be sitting with them doing homework. So if they want to be in honors classes, then they have to make the commitment to handle the workload that's in honors classes, and if they're not up to it, that's okay. All right. One of the things is that, intrinsic motivation develops naturally. There is nothing you can do to force it. So for me, that intrinsic motivation didn't develop until 12th grade, as I spoke about a little earlier. So it will develop when it develops. Yes, we can incentivize getting through non-preferred tasks. I teach a strategy for that in webinar 4 of Executive Function Crash Course. We can encourage kids. We can use purposeful recognition and praise, but you cannot force intrinsic motivation. It just is something that has to develop naturally. Okay? So please remember those key points for the school year. Do not toxify your relationship over homework. It is not worth it. It is not a predictor of your kid's future success. And the other thing I want to mention is their grades or their homework output is not a reflection of your parenting, okay? I hear a lot of parents say, well, they're going to think that I'm neglectful or whatever. And I say, no, because that's not accurate. You're not being neglectful because you're not, sitting there till 1 a.m. making sure he finishes, some homework assignment, okay? So that's number 1. Do not toxify your parent-child relationship over homework. You can ask for accommodations if necessary to show understanding of concepts and, quality of work versus, quantity of work as, indicators for grades rather than, just having, completion. The other thing I also want to mention with that is for, kids who are on ADHD medication, a lot of times by nighttime they're done. They can't focus that late at night after they've been in school all day and their meds have worn off. So, for a lot of parents, it's fighting a losing battle. All right. And the other thing again is let your kids advocate for themselves. So if they are under 5th grade, so in 1st grade, 2nd grade, 3rd grade, 4th grade, what you can do with them is help them come up with the language to talk to their teacher. You can role play it with them, okay? Help them with what to say, and email the teacher. Say, Ryan wanted to talk to you about whatever tomorrow, okay? So if he forgets, can you please, just remind him? So that way he's still self-advocating. For those of you in 5th grade and up, have them reach out to the teacher themselves. Again, you can email the teacher for them and you can help them with what to say, but let it be their words because that's teaching self-advocacy skills and it's teaching them to be proactive. All right. I will do a few more questions. Hello from Australia. Hi. That's always exciting when I see people from across the world. Should I be worried about my 12-year-old entering 7th grade advanced math? I don't know anything about your 12-year-old, so I'm sorry. I can't answer that. So in regards to the student taking 3 honors classes, he didn't ask for them. The high school said it must have been by teacher recommendation. Yes, so I think that's something that you should probably discuss with his school counselor, okay? And, just be completely transparent. And that's the last thing that I want to mention too is, in regards to, not getting combative or confrontational with your son or daughter's teachers, also be really transparent with them. And it's okay to say to teachers, you know what, by, 8 o'clock, when we sit down to do homework, he's just done and I can't have a battle at home every night. We need some quality family time. There is nothing wrong with you saying that, all right? And, let teachers know what life is like at home sometimes when kids' meds wear off. I did that regularly with my son when he was younger because of how difficult, he was. So be transparent with teachers because that helps them have greater empathy and greater understanding, particularly if we're talking about lack of, homework output, okay? All right. So thank you so much for tuning in. I hope this